Paul Simon really didn't like her more than anyone else. Paul Simon was born with the name Paul Frederick Simon on October 13, 1941, in Newark, New Jersey. Growing up in the Queens part of New York City, Simon heard lots of different sounds from the city early on. A mix of doo-wop singing groups, Latin music beats, and folk songs that would later shape how he wrote music. His dad, Louis Simon, was a college teacher and played music professionally, and his mom, Belle, was a teacher too. Music was all around their house, and by the time Paul was a teenager, he was already writing songs because he loved musicians like Elvis Presley and the Everly Brothers. That early love for melodies and song words would eventually make him one of America's best musical storytellers. Simon first became famous as part of the legendary pair Simon and Garfunkel with his childhood friend Art Garfunkel. The two met in elementary school and started performing together in the 1950s under the name Tom and Jerry. Their first small hit song, Hey Schoolgirl, came out in 1957 when both were still teenagers. But it wasn't until the mid-1960s that Simon and Garfunkel really got the world's attention. With Paul Simon's thoughtful songwriting and Garfunkel's beautiful harmonies, the duo made a special sound that perfectly matched the cultural problems of that time. Songs like The Sound of Silence, Scarborough Fair, Homeward Bound, and Bridge Over Troubled Water became songs that a whole generation loved, speaking to both personal feelings and bigger social changes. Simon's ability to mix poetry with melody made him one of the most important voices of the 1960s. After Simon and Garfunkel broke up in 1970, when they were at their most famous, Paul Simon started a solo career that would make people think of him as a musical inventor even more. His 1972 album with his name on it had hit songs like Mother and Child Reunion and Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard, both showing his early interest in world music rhythms. Simon kept changing throughout the 1970s, trying out different types of music from folk and jazz to reggae and gospel. Albums like Still Crazy, after all these years from 1975, not only got him praise from music critics, but also won him multiple Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. His songwriting got more mature, showing deep emotional details and a unique sense of humor, mixing sadness with jokes in a way that few artists could pull off. Maybe Simon's boldest and most celebrated artistic jump came in 1986 with the release of Graceland, an album that changed the sound of popular music forever. It was recorded in South Africa during the apartheid time. The album mixed Simon's folk pop style with African rhythms and the lively harmonies of the local musicians he worked with. Even though people argued about politics because of his decision to record there, Graceland became huge around the world and is now thought of as one of the most important albums of the 20th century. Songs like You Can Call Me Al and Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes introduced many Western listeners to South African music and helped break down cultural walls through the universal language of song. The album went on to win the Grammy Award for Album of the Year and is often mentioned as one of Simon's greatest accomplishments. Throughout the decades after that, Paul Simon kept pushing creative limits. His later albums, including The Rhythm of the Saints from 1990, You're the One from 2000, and Stranger to Stranger from 2016, showed a restless artistic spirit that wasn't afraid of trying new things. He explored Brazilian drumming, electronic sounds, and complicated lyrical storytelling, all while keeping his special melodic skill. Simon's live performances were just as captivating, mixing humor, humility, and deep artistry. Whether performing before small audiences or huge crowds, he always kept a sense of closeness that made each song feel very personal. Beyond his musical accomplishments, Simon's humanitarian and cultural contributions are just as important. He has long supported causes related to education, children's health, and taking care of the environment. His involvement in benefit concerts and speaking up for global awareness made his reputation even stronger as an artist who uses his platform for good. Simon's thoughtful lyrics often show a deep understanding for the human condition, exploring topics of love, loss, spirituality, and the search for meaning. His music has served as both comfort and inspiration for millions around the world. Paul Simon's romantic life has long interested fans, not only because of his deep artistry, but also because of the women who shared his life. Each relationship marking a clear chapter in his journey as a man and a musician. Throughout his lifetime, Simon has been married 3 times. First to Peggy Harper, then to actress Carrie Fisher, and later to singer-songwriter Edie Brickell. Each marriage brought its own happiness, challenges, and artistic inspiration, showing Simon's emotional depth and complexity. His first marriage was to Peggy Harper, a woman who came into his life when he was at the height of his fame with Simon and Garfunkel. They married in 1969, a time when Paul Simon was already celebrated as one of the most gifted songwriters of his generation. The couple shared a period of stability in the middle of the chaos of Simon's rising career, and their relationship inspired some of his most touching songs. Harper, who worked in publishing, had an elegance and intelligence that went well with Simon's thoughtful nature. Together, they had a son, Harper Simon, born in 1972, who would later follow in his father's footsteps as a musician. But as Paul Simon's fame grew and his artistic dreams got bigger, the demands of his career put stress on their marriage. By 1975, after 6 years together, the couple divorced, a separation that deeply affected Simon. The breakup reportedly inspired one of his most haunting songs, Still Crazy. After all these years, a song of reflection and emotional maturity that showed his feelings of nostalgia and loss. Despite their divorce, Simon and Harper stayed connected through their son, and Simon often talked about his appreciation for the years they shared as important ones in his personal life. In 1983, Paul Simon entered one of the most high-profile marriages of his life when he married Carrie Fisher, the actress and writer best known for her iconic role as Princess Leia in Star Wars. Their relationship was passionate, up and down, and deeply mixed with the pressures of fame. Simon and Fisher had dated on and off for several years before marrying, and both were known for their sharp wit and emotional intensity. The marriage lasted only a year, but how short it was didn't make it less emotionally significant. Fisher, with her humor and openness about her feelings, challenged Simon in ways few others could. Their relationship inspired creative work on both sides. Fisher wrote about Simon in her semi-autobiographical novel, Postcards from the Edge, while Simon drew upon their stormy love affair in songs such as Hearts and Bones. The title track from his 1983 album of the same name is widely thought of as a reflection of their relationship, a poetic meditation on two people, one and one half wandering Jews trying to find harmony in the middle of chaos. Even after their divorce in 1984, Simon and Fisher kept a bond. They reportedly got back together romantically for a brief time afterward and remained close friends until her death in 2016. Fisher once said that Simon could break her heart with a lyric, while Simon described her as brilliant, hilarious, and full of soul. After 2 failed marriages, Paul Simon finally found lasting love with Edie Brickell, a singer-songwriter known for her hit What I Am with the band Edie Brickell and New Bohemians. The two met in 1988 when Brickell was performing on Saturday Night Live, and Simon, sitting in the audience, was immediately captivated by her voice and presence. They married in 1992, marking the beginning of one of the most lasting relationships in Simon's life. Despite their 25-year age difference, Simon and Brickell shared an uncommon artistic connection and respect for each other. Brickell brought warmth, playfulness, and a youthful spirit into Simon's life, while Simon offered her the depth and experience of a master songwriter. Together, they built a family, raising 3 children, Adrian, Lulu, and Gabrielle. Their marriage has gotten through the challenges of fame and the normal strains of home life, but it has also been marked by creative collaboration. The couple sometimes work together musically, most notably on the 2013 album Love Has Come For You, a Grammy-winning project mixing folk and bluegrass influences that showed their harmonious partnership. Although their relationship has not been without its struggles, including a brief, much-publicized domestic dispute in 2014 that ended with both of them downplaying the incident and saying they still loved each other, Simon and Brickell have continued to stand by each other. Their marriage represents a mature, lasting love that's different from Simon's earlier, more up-and-down romances. Over the decades, Edie Brickell has remained his anchor, a source of balance and joy as Simon entered his later years and slowly stepped back from touring. The legendary partnership of Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel stands as one of the most celebrated collaborations in music history. But underneath the harmonies and poetic lyrics was a stormy, often painful friendship that fell apart over decades. Though their musical chemistry created some of the most famous songs of the 20th century, such as Bridge Over Troubled Water, The Sound of Silence, and Scarborough Fair, their personal relationship was marked by jealousy, resentment, and a deep emotional distance that neither man could completely get over. As Paul Simon would later think back, Art and I were like brothers in music, but brothers who could never stop fighting. Their bond began in the 1950s when they were still teenagers in Queens, New York. Performing under the name Tom and Jerry, they shared the dream of becoming famous musicians. Garfunkel's angelic high voice blended easily with Simon's songwriting and rhythm guitar. For a time, it seemed like a perfect partnership built on mutual respect and shared ambition. But as Simon grew into a skilled songwriter and lyricist, a quiet rivalry began to take shape. Simon later admitted, "I always felt like Art got too much credit for the sound that was really both of us. I was the one writing the songs, arranging the music, and yet I was always the one in the shadows." That worry haunted him. As Simon and Garfunkel's fame exploded in the late 1960s, their relationship got worse under the pressure of success. Garfunkel's film career, especially his work in Catch-22 and Carnal Knowledge, caused serious problems. Simon felt abandoned and betrayed when Garfunkel made acting more important than their music. "I felt like I was doing all the work while he was off playing movie star," Simon said years later. "It wasn't just about the time he spent away. It was about loyalty. I couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't value what we had the same way I did." The final blow came during the recording of Bridge Over Troubled Water. Though it became their signature song, it also marked their end. Simon wrote it but let Garfunkel sing the lead vocal, an act of generosity that he came to regret deeply. "I handed him the song that defined us," Simon said bitterly. "I thought we were a team, but after that it felt like it was his song. People didn't realize I wrote it. That hurt more than I could admit at the time." It symbolized what Simon saw as the big imbalance of their partnership, his creative genius constantly overshadowed by Garfunkel's voice and charm. Their 1970 breakup was brutal. Though they got back together for concerts and special performances over the years, most notably their massive 1981 concert in Central Park, the tension never truly went away. Simon remembered, "Every time we tried to work together again, it ended up the same way. We'd start with good intentions, but old wounds never healed. The ego clashes, the blame, it all came rushing back." Garfunkel, on his part, was equally honest, calling Simon a monster of a little man in one interview, while Simon described Garfunkel as an angel who sometimes forgot he was human. Over time, their mutual bitterness hardened into something close to hatred. "I don't know that I ever hated anyone more," Simon once admitted in a rare moment of openness. "It's strange because I also loved him more than most people I've ever known. But the disappointment, what we lost, it became too much." Garfunkel, meanwhile, spoke of Simon as a friend I can't forgive and a partner I can't forget. Their relationship was a contradiction, built on music that celebrated unity, yet destroyed by ego and pride. Even in later years, when both men were well into their 70s, the emotional distance remained. Attempts at making up were short-lived. They'd sometimes share warm public moments, but privately, Simon said, "We were never meant to be lifelong friends. We were meant to make music together. That was our gift and our curse." Despite the pain, Simon has also said he knows the irreplaceable magic Garfunkel brought to their songs. "No one could have sung them like Art did. Whatever else happened between us, that's a truth I'll always honor." In the end, the story of Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel is both tragic and beautiful. A creative union that shaped modern music, but left behind a trail of emotional damage. For Simon, the lasting resentment may have been impossible to separate from the love he once had for his partner. Their voices may have blended perfectly in harmony, but their hearts never could. As Simon once said, "Sometimes the person who inspires your greatest music is also the one who breaks your heart the most." Theirs was not just a partnership. It was a lifelong struggle between genius and ego, art and emotion, connection and betrayal. And for Paul Simon, that complicated mixture turned into something darker over time. A feeling that could only be described as love, twisted into hate.